Hello everyone, so today I'm just going to show an overview of the fuel pump replacement, and the fuel injector is included as well on a KPR 200. I did follow a video on Herbie's Garage on how to take off the fuel tank, and you'll see what I'm doing here is following his instructions, which includes propping up the fuel tank and disconnecting the battery. Next, I siphoned out the old gasoline that was in the tank with a siphon, a bucket, and also disconnected the fuel lines and the other connections associated with the tank. With this one, Herbie's Garage also helped with understanding which ones to take off for this process. So I highly recommend going over to his video, and it will show in detail the steps that need to be taken. But there's the fuel line, there's a couple of connectors, and then there is the connector that goes to the fuel pump, which I'm removing here. Next, it's just a lift up and pull back on the fuel tank, and it comes right on off. Next, you need to get the pliers, the same ones for that hose clamp pliers, and pull off the end to the old fuel pump. You'll also have another hose right over here. All right, so I'll need to cover these holes down there. So I got rubber bands and some plastic bags. Put them on there tight, so when I flip it over and go through the process of cleaning the tank, it won't leak through the bottom. So I started with vinegar, and I mixed vinegar 1-to-1 with water, and waited 24 hours for that to sit in the tank to remove any rust or deposits that may have developed after the bike sat for about 6 months. All right, so that's kind of an idea as to that flash rust that's up there. It happens when it is exposed to air, so that's a process, that's part of the process. So what I ended up doing was I just used a wire brush to remove some of that residue, and essentially with the process of cleaning it with vinegar, you'll end up needing to neutralize the tank with baking soda and water after you've soaked it for the amount of time. And additionally here, I would highly recommend, if you're using a bucket like I did, I'd highly recommend covering the edges so it protects your paint. And so I dumped that out, and now I'm just refilling it back up with water. Going to dump that out again, and then I'll be using baking soda water to neutralize the tank. Let that sit for, I waited about 5 to 10 minutes. It may not need that long, but I was getting some other things done in the meantime. All right, here's the baking soda water. It's kind of messy, but fairly easy to do, and I highly recommend, if you do this the way that I did, is wipe off your tank, dry it off on the top so it doesn't damage your paint. I have a little bit of residual spots from where the baking soda and or vinegar impacted the paint that I had there. So I highly recommend that. Next step is to completely dry the tank. So I used a hair dryer and I let it sit there on the cool setting. Next, when it's all dry, I flipped it upside down, started taking off the old fuel pump. And you'll need to reuse the bolts that are on there. So you want to take care and not lose any of them, and make sure that they don't fall in the tank either. And it is a little bit difficult to get it out simply because of the filter that's on the end is square. So it's kind of an awkward manner to get it out, but it is possible. You just got to twist it a little bit. And I highly recommend cleaning off those bolts with a wire brush and some cleanser so they'll nice and clean for the new fuel pump. Got the new one, got some gasket sealer, cleaned off the old residual from the old gasket that was on there, and I've used a light bead along the edges further away from the inside of the tank. That way when I put the fuel pump on, it doesn't squeeze into the tank, because what we need to do after it's been completely dry, we also need to swish around fresh gasoline after it's dry to coat the interior of the tank. And you'll want to be extra careful to not get any of that gasket sealer on the new components, the new filter. So I was very mindful of not getting that on there. I probably could have gotten the big part in before using the sealer. I simply did not think it through. So waiting might be a good option as well. I think it all got nice and coated, and you can see over there the new fuel pump. And I did not add enough gasket sealer to where it would literally like ooze in there. So it's all nice and wet, but it's all good. All right, and so this section is for the fuel injector. It's two little bolts right there. I think it might be an 8mm. And a little clip. So that little clip pulls right on off. You have to push in the metal bracket and it'll pop right off there for you. So unscrew those, take off that connector there, and stick the new one in. This is the old one that I had. Well, it's replaced. I mean, it didn't look like it was super terrible, but at least I have a new one in there now. So, very nice. Alright, so I put the hoses back on where they go. They're both nice and tight, exactly the way they came off. This is going to be sitting here drying and sealing overnight. Hopefully there's no leak in it. But I'm gonna find out tomorrow when after I let it dry. I'll put it in there, put some fuel in there, see how it does. But I'm gonna put it all back together over there. Okay, so here is essentially the exact same process as taking off the tank. Just making sure that when routing the tubes, they don't get pinched anywhere up under the tank. That's a really important part. And rerouting them essentially the same way they came off. All right, so with this one, I put in about a gallon of fresh gasoline, and of course I'm going to mix it with a stabilizer, but just to see, you know, if it would start. And I put about a gallon in, and it wasn't quite enough, so it still wasn't starting. After I added about 2 gallons, 2.5 gallons, it started right on up. And so I'll show you that right now, but make sure that you add more than just a gallon, because it won't quite reach high enough. It'll stay in the little grooves on the side. And I put all of her fairings back on, the seat back on, and all of the other accessories back on, cleaned it all up, and now we're ready for the season. Thank you for watching.